at the top of the hour. Kevin Sweeney, SI.com, the NCAA Tournament bubble teams and what they need to do to join the madness. Kevin, thanks for your time with Paul, Craig, and David. So let's start with the Big 12. Obviously, the best conference in America, the deepest. Kansas has wrapped up the regular season title. There are thoughts they can get 7, 8, or maybe more. What does West Virginia need to do? Are they in? And can Oklahoma State get themselves in?
Oklahoma State can, but I think they'll need to win at least one and maybe 2 games at the Big 12 tournament because they're just stacking up too many losses. I think they're a tournament caliber team, but we saw last year with Oklahoma at 18 and 15, the committee doesn't love those resumes with only 3 games over 500. It just hasn't been enough historically. West Virginia, I think, in a little better shape. They could lock up a bid with a win against Kansas State this weekend, or 1 win, I think, at the Big 12 tournament.
What is it? Just maybe recency there that West Virginia's finally started to play maybe up to their caliber, and Oklahoma State's hit the wall? Is that the difference between those two?
Yeah, it's also the non-conference. Obviously, Oklahoma State's got 1 more win in the conference, but they took a bad loss to Southern Illinois in non-conference play. They lost to UCF on a neutral court. They didn't build much of a resume. Where West Virginia, they played a very difficult non-conference schedule. They played Florida, they played Purdue, they played Pittsburgh. They played a very good UAB team. They got a little bit of equity, including that road win against Pitt, who's going to share the ACC title more than likely. So I think that's a difference maker for those 2 resumes as well.
Kevin, where do you envision Texas Tech at the moment?
They're close to auto bid or bust. If they beat Oklahoma State this weekend and they made a run in the Big 12 tournament, they could make a case, partially because of the injuries with Fardaws Aimaq just finally now getting into form, and the fact that they are truly playing very good basketball right now. But I think because they played a very weak non-conference schedule, and the fact that they've stacked up 14 losses now and are going to go at best 6 and 12 in the league, it is pretty tight in terms of Texas Tech that large hopes.
How about Hubert Davis in North Carolina, who made the great run last year, and Baylor felt that in the second round? They seem to be kind of on the uptick earlier this week, but your thoughts about what they need to do, or are they going to get in with just kind of okay because of their name, or does that even work?
It might work. I don't think you want to be testing that if you're Carolina. If they beat Duke this weekend, they'll be in relatively good position heading into the ACC tournament. Now, if they win that game, I think they need to basically avoid a bad loss at the conference tournament and ideally add 1 more win that matters in that quad 1 tier. If they lose this game at home, I think they're going to really have to make a run, potentially make it to the ACC championship game. And at that point, you might as well win it. Again, you could probably make a case for Carolina to be, team number 68 out of 68 right now. But it will be quite the sweat if they can't beat Duke this weekend.
Is there a conference you see that doesn't have a team that can really make any kind of deep run?
Not really. I think the ACC, you're starting to get there, and I want to buy into Duke because I think they're playing a little bit better basketball lately. But Virginia has been really, really underwhelming lately. They just don't look talented enough to play deep into the NCAA tournament. They just lost to Boston College. They struggle with Louisville and Notre Dame. So I think that would be the one where I'd start to circle it. I know Miami is also taking a bad loss recently to Florida State. I think what you're looking for are leagues that have the most depth, and that's where really the Big 12 has separated itself. It has several teams where you see them potentially making some noise once you get to the NCAA tournament.
Kevin Sweeney, SI.com, and the men's basketball tournament. Conference tournaments have begun. Some will begin next week. Some still have the regular season to close out this weekend.
Tonight you got a couple of games of interest that you have listed as far as the most important bubble games. I guess there's actually 3: Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois. I guess to start there, what are you looking at as far as the Big Ten goes right now?
Yeah, and both of those bubble teams, Michigan and Wisconsin, desperately need wins. For Michigan, they're set 11-7 in the league, but they took a horrible loss in the non-conference to Central Michigan, is one of the 40 worst teams in college basketball. Some of their wins aren't, necessarily the biggest resume builders. So a road win at Illinois tonight would be huge. And then Wisconsin started strong. They won at Marquette. They beat USC on a neutral court, but they are, they are 5-10 in the last 15 games. So beating Purdue here would potentially swing their favor. I think Wisconsin right now is in a little bit better position, but Michigan's playing a lot better basketball than Wisconsin is right now. So both of those teams are not quite must-win games, but pretty darn close here in the first week of March.
Kevin, the mid-majors, and I don't even like calling them that. We had a guest on earlier this week about that, Seth Greenberg. You have Marquette, really, really good. Obviously, Gonzaga is considered that, although they're in the elite category because their runs of late, although this year they have not been quite as high. And there's maybe one or two others, like maybe San Diego State. Boise State had a nice win a couple of days ago. Which of those schools, in your opinion, may have the ability to make the deepest run? And I don't even include Houston because I don't consider them that, even if it's the American Conference. Yeah,
same. And I think with Marquette as well, I mean, it's in the Big East. I think of them as pretty well positioned. I think San Diego State is probably most built for a deep run just because athletically at every spot they looked the part. They played at the Maui Invitational. They were very competitive. They beat Ohio State. They led Arkansas late and then let that game slip away, hung in with Arizona for most of that game. So they're battle-tested. They're very, very athletic. They've got a tremendous coach in Brian Bitcher and played in the NCAA Tournament last year and just got nipped by Creighton at the Horn. So that's a very, very good San Diego State team. I think a second weekend caliber club.
How many teams in the Big 12, other than Kansas, based on this weekend and possibly in Kansas City, do you think is anyone else able to get to a number 1 seed, or is it going to be possibly 3 number 2 seeds and Kansas a number 1 seed?
I think probably more likely than not, that's what we're looking at, the latter. I think Texas is the one that probably has the best chance of climbing up and getting that last number 1. But I think that would require a win over Kansas this weekend, certainly. And then I think it would need a little bit of help, whether that be Purdue losing, I think would be huge. And then also I think UCLA, who has done a really nice job building its resume here lately. I think the Bruins would have to lose in the Pac-12 tournament for Texas to get up to that number 1 line.
What double-digit seeded team would you not want to play? Or a team that's going to likely be a double-digit seeded team would you not want to play?
That's a tough question. Oral Roberts is kind of back in the spotlight with Max Naismith. They're really good again. They're much better actually statistically than they were 2 seasons ago when they made the Sweet 16. So they'll probably be a 12 seed assuming they win the Summit League tournament, and that will be the traditional kind of 12-5 upset. I think they can win a game or two because they shoot it extremely well, and they're much better defensively than they were. They have 7'5" Connor Vanover blocking shots in the middle, which helps.
Kevin Sweeney, SI.com, again on the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Your thoughts about A&M, who has quietly, and maybe not so quietly.
Not so quietly.
Yeah. And they have Alabama coming up on Saturday, but they have just really, a great job by Buzz Williams. But where are they? And obviously with Alabama at home on Saturday, the kind of noise they can make.
Yeah, I mean, they've been outstanding the last 2 months of the season. And I think, they're going to feel underseeded on Selection Sunday because, they get a 7 or an 8 seed potentially. This team's played like a top 4 seed the last 2 months, but because of the hole they dug themselves by losing to Murray State, by losing to Wofford, it will be harder for them to really climb. So right now they're playing like a team that can really make some noise. They almost remind me of Memphis last year, where they really clicked down the stretch and got a 9 seed. And it was like, oh, man, Gonzaga is going to really run into something here in the second round. And Memphis nearly won that game. Gonzaga just barely snuck past them. And I think a similar thing could be in store here. So if you're a 1 seed, you really do not want Texas A&M as that 8 seed in your region.
Paul brought up Oral Roberts. Is there a chance, no matter what they do in the tournament that they're in, are they in 18-0 in the conference, but some conferences we know no matter what, you are a 1-bid conference? What about them? We brought them up, but your thoughts about that?
You'd like to think they'd have a chance because they're going to win like 30 games, and their only losses are against Quad 1 opponents. Very few teams are undefeated against Quad 2, 3, and 4 like Oral Roberts is. My personal hunch is that they would get left out I think a team like College of Charleston has a better chance as an at-large if they slip in their conference tournament than Oral Roberts does. But they would at least be in the conversation because, they've won 24 of their last 25 games. If that doesn't get you into the NCAA tournament mix, what are we doing here?
Kevin, thank you, man. Appreciate your time. Great stuff. I love it. This is an incredible time to try to figure it all out, the NCAA tournament, who is in, who's on the bubble. And when you see names like North Carolina, Memphis, Wisconsin, among some others, then you never know. And you wonder sometimes, does the name matter? We say it does in college football, but does it in basketball?